Put it to the meeting. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Any matters arising? If nothing, we'll go to the action sheet. Any questions? Worksheet, governance work plan. Nothing further. Let's go to page 11. But before we proceed, in the public input and petitions, Nikki and Bob are going to say something on behalf of the Railway Action Group, and Larry wants to speak a little on concern in town. Okay. Welcome. That's fine. This you, David? You're operating framework?
You want to do public petitions first?
Well, we'll do them now, yeah. Nikki?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm here in my capacity as the co-chair of the Te Rāwhiti Rail Limited, but for the purposes of the presentation today, I'm going to introduce you to Bob Proudfoot, who you all know, and Bob will be introducing what we consider to be a follow-through on the feasibility for the rail from Gisborne to Wairoa, but it's going to focus on particularly the heavy traffic routes through obviously the city from Matawhero and obviously to the port, and how Bob's proposal really looks very carefully at how that can be achieved over a short period of time. Having said that, it has been presented to you previously by GHL, who Bob has also got support from to be here today.
Thank you for affording us the time to make this presentation this afternoon. When we received last night's Gisborne Herald and read your discussions for today's meeting regarding the planning for the urban road transport potential changes for Gisborne, we saw the need to formally advise you of what GHL is progressing with. We would like your group to consider among its deliberations of a heavy traffic bypass for Gisborne as an alternative way to overcome the problems foreseen in the Cardno report, which you are discussing today. In truth, we would ask you to hold off making a decision as to changes for the urban traffic flow in Gisborne until our feasibility report on the bypass is received and available to you. Why GHL, and where has this come from, you might be asking? Well, GHL is a CCO that's 100% owned by GDC for the ratepayers of Gisborne and Te Rāwhiti. Our board is intently driven by one precept: make Gisborne, Te Rāwhiti a better place to live and prosper. Our board observed the growing incompatibility problems of domestic and tourist road users versus heavy traffic users on our urban roadways. We could not see the problem improving anytime soon. We deliberated on the problem and developed a plan, much already suggested by others on past occasions, which could potentially retain Gisborne's inherent lifestyle advantages while enabling industry to grow alongside. On the 19th of April 2018, GHL presented to councillors an outline of their proposal for a bypass to be investigated. GHL were advising GDC as part of their no surprises understanding with the councillors. We asked each councillor to advise us how they felt about supporting GHL proceeding to obtain a feasibility study on the viability of the bypass proposal 11 of the 13 councillors present verbally supported GHL proceeding to procure the study, which would then be made available to the council to act on. Today, we are advising you that we are finalising an application to the Provisional Growth Fund to fund the feasibility study. We are presenting to you, what we are presenting to you is sections of that draft application. From this point, we intend to consult with iwi, transport operators, business owners, senior citizens, and the wider community. So I'm sorry, I underestimated exactly the number we would have, so I don't think we've got a full number of my things to go around, but if I could read through the main parts of it and we could share them. I'll share with Larry because he's right next door. So it says that the applicant for the proposal to go to the Provincial Growth Fund is Gisborne Holdings Limited, and that I'm the contact person for it. The principal role of us as applicants is that we think a heavy traffic bypass concept is aimed at facilitating improvement to Gisborne District Council's urban roading constraints and servicing Gisborne's economic development for the next 50 years or so. Gisborne City Councillors are supportive of Gisborne Holdings Limited proceeding to procure a feasibility study of this concept. We are now seeking funding from the PGF and/or NZTA to fund the procurement of this feasibility study. GHL is establishing a support community focusing on heavy traffic bypass for heavy logging trucks and other heavy vehicles travelling through Gisborne urban areas. The applicant wishes to see Gisborne City plan and develop an efficient urban transport system for the next 50 to 100 years, whereby the area's forestry industry and other industries can thrive, but not at the detriment of our domestic city dwellers, holidaymakers, tourists, and retirement folk in other industries. The Tairāwhiti area is one of the largest rating areas in New Zealand. It is also one of the most sparsely populated. The consequence of this is that we have a very small rating base. The applicant wishes for Tairāwhiti area to diversify and increase its non-rates-based income. One way to do this is by way of a toll to be charged on the usage of the bypass. The toll should continue long-term into the future and well after the cost of the bypass, any cost of the bypass construction is repaid. This would provide an ongoing fund for infrastructure funding in the Gisborne Tairāwhiti area. A summary of the project. 30 years ago, Cyclone Bola struck our region with devastating effect. The government's response was to plant pine trees on our heavily eroded hill country to prevent the topsoil slipping and being washed down rivers and into the ocean. This was a great idea, but unfortunately the infrastructure work, which would inevitably be required some 25 to 30 years later on, when harvest ensued, was never planned or implemented. The Tairāwhiti area and Gisborne City are now paying the price for this lack of planning and infrastructure work not being done. From what has been printed and advised so far, planning is in place for the infrastructure enhancement to be gradually improved in our rural feeder areas. However, the advices to date failed to identify any significant planning for Gisborne City infrastructure, roading and rail network. I should correct that. After reading the report in the paper last night and seeing the papers for today's thing, I had no knowledge of the Cardno report and the work that they were doing on it. So if you could disregard that a little bit, yeah, that was a change because we honestly didn't hear anything about it. The last 5 years has seen a steadily increasing hazardous nature of driving and cycling domestically in Gisborne. This has coincided with a growing number of large logging trucks on our city roads. The Eastland Group are expecting the log tonnage across the port to increase from 3 million tonnes in 2018 to 6 million tonnes by 2020, putting increasing pressure on residents and tourists travelling on our city roads. To quote the paper before you this afternoon, the Cardno conclusions under 6 state, these local roads often service a mixture of land uses and community functions, and in most cases are not designed to accommodate such high proportions of heavy vehicles. This situation has created safety and efficiency concerns for freight operators, as well as the local communities. In the future, the situation will be further exacerbated if logging exports double by 2020, as is currently projected. Gisborne has been a small coastal rural servicing city, great for tourism, retirement, and simply enjoying our wonderful beaches and the laid-back lifestyle. It has now had its peaceful living status threatened by its city roads being overburdened by logging trucks servicing the timber industry, delivering logs to our community-owned port and our timber processing plants. For our region to grow, we need the logging trucks. We also need a thriving port, a reliable rail system, as well as the processing plants. What we must do, though, is to take the logging and heavy traffic out of our city and suburban streets. This will enhance the safety of cyclists and school children and enable residents and tourists to travel about our city without having a huge grill chasing them down in their rear vision mirror. The bypass would reinstate our unique lifestyle, but not penalise the continued growth of the industry in our area. The bypass route that we're suggesting, well, it starts with a roundabout, the Wainui Sponge Bay Road intersection, northeast of the city, and the new road would be created off this roundabout along the old rifle range across the back of the hills and down to join the end of Kaiti Beach Road. The road would travel along the beach to the wharf where an entry-exit would be created for the port and Rakatani Road. A bridge or tunnel would be created to navigate the port entrance and the Taronganui River. If a bridge is proven the best option, then we see a cantilevered section over the wharf to facilitate high-masted boats entrance into the harbour and to harbour mooring. The bypass would then continue to the railway station, the old railway station, and then run parallel to the existing railway line to Stanley Road, where a roundabout would be installed. From here, the bypass would adjoin Inner Street and travel to Parkinson Street, where it would cross through a roundabout at Lytton Road. The new road would then be required, adjacent to the Tikuri Tuatai Marae meeting house and around the back of the airport paddock to return to Awapuni Road, State Highway 35, to a new roundabout opposite the 14th hole of the Poldy Bay Golf Course. We envisaged overpasses would be needed at Custom House Street and Grey Street to facilitate domestic travel to and from the beaches, the city beaches. No residential houses need to be removed to facilitate this plan. This is the bypass route option we are proposing for evaluation. However, we have suggested in the scope to possible engineers and project developers that they should, from their own investigations, suggest alternative bypass routes if they envisage them. We have attached a map that's right at the back showing the approximate route of the bypass that we're proposing. The potential advantages for Gisborne City and Tauraki area include: 1, large trucks out of the city and suburban traffic. 2, the port should not be affected. Efficiencies would be gained by improved traffic flow. 3, long-term answers to current noise pollution problems affecting tourism, the tourists and the residents in Awapuni Road and Gisborne beachfront areas. 4, would greatly enhance Gisborne's future as a recreational and retirement city, as well as thriving forestry and farming region. The development of our timber industry should not be affected, there is potential for efficiencies in transport and associated timings to be gained. Should reduce the wear and tear on the inner city roads and the focus of cost of development and focus the cost of development to the expanding industries that require the infrastructure. It should strengthen the life expectancy of the Gladstone Road bridge with heavy traffic excluded. It could potentially be funded without rates input and eventually provide a roading fund for Tairāwhiti Gisborne, i.e. tolling the road from Sponge Bay to Stanley Road. To maximise the benefits as provided by government funding, as is currently promised to provincial regions, we should do this now. Industry can contribute towards the roading initiatives in a targeted manner, i.e. the tolls, when it is aligned to their cash flows and operating outcomes. In other words, the logging trucks would be taking their product down to sale, and that's when log producers or forestry people have their revenue. It's not like being rated on the fact that you're growing a pine tree and you don't get any money back for 25 years. So it fits into that quite well. Industry can contribute to the proposed Tarini Street Wainui Road roundabout development would no longer be necessary. If we didn't have the logging trucks coming down Wainui Road, we'd have no need for that roundabout at the end of Harini Street. Heavy traffic within the city is affecting our unique lifestyle. This heavy traffic bypass will re-establish our unique lifestyle, which hopefully will attract entrepreneurs and tourists to our city, potentially creating new jobs for our people and create a well-balanced, resilient regional economy. The overall outcome of this proposal is to, one, to divert the routes taken by heavy traffic users, in particular logging with large numbers of double trips from the north to the Dunstan Road processing plant and then back to the port, crisscrossing the township back and forth to the port on the inner city roads. Currently, roads near recreational areas, the roads around the schools, the retirement villages are turned into logging truck roads with no respite from the noise and the pollution. To improve the safety to road users and to safeguard children attending Kaiti School, Mangapapa School, Lytton High School, Cobham School, Awapuni School, many play centres and kindergartens, residential areas, swimming pools and recreational areas from heavy vehicle passing their properties. To improve the environmental and social factors of trucks and traffic volumes travelling to the port and through the central business district. To reduce impact from noise, vibration, log waste, effluent from trucks, to grow higher value residential and tourist accommodation along Awapuni Road, and to stop the constant degradation of existing urban roading assets. For MOT and NZTA to work with GDC to realign State Highway 35 to run alongside the rail corridor and to reopen the railway line to upgrade and provide rail and road access to Gisborne Port. This realignment and infrastructure work will introduce increased market efficiencies, provide choice to businesses as competition is good for a better working, democratic and prosperous society. Okay, so and the map is on the back. So that's basically what we're all about, and we think that it's relevant that we had the opportunity today to be able to bring it up to you so that you could consider it when you're considering the Cardno report and what it is, what the workshops are likely to propose coming through those. Is there any questions that anybody would like to raise?
Well, thank you for that. It's pretty ambitious. Does the committee have any questions? Only the committee can ask. If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Larry.
Yeah, thank you. Before I start, I just want to declare a conflict of interest, being a business owner and a building owner in our CBD. But I just, I've had a lot of calls and I've been visiting a lot of retail in the retail shops in our town over the last few days since the road closure. This is about the road closure that's going into the CBD at the moment, off the bridge. I've spoken with Dave Hadfield on Monday and with my concerns, and he advised me that it's a health and safety issue is the reason why that road has been closed. Now, the consequences of that road closing, and we did have a note, there was notices put around last Thursday in town. A young lady dropped the notices to some shops. Now, not every shop was advised, so, and the other form of consultation was the odd letter notice in the paper that this was going to happen, and with no timelines, possibly 5 months. Now, that's the main entranceway to our CBD. You know, we've got a CBD that is kind of threatened by online shopping and a lot of other winter blues. Retailers are, you know, they have times in winter time in particular where they do struggle a bit, and summertime they make up for it with the increase of population and tourists and whatnot. Now, you know, being a retailer myself, I know the whole environment of how it works, and everyone has had a bad week. This has been a tremendously bad week because of that road closure. And there was a lot of concern out there that if this is going to be closed for a long length of time, the catastrophic consequences on the businesses in our town will be huge. So I'm pleading to this committee that we can look at that situation of having that road closure, a health and safety issue, I believe. Well, I believe the health of our CBD is very important. and as part of the economy of this town and the whole region. So I would like to see the reviewing of why this road is closed at this particular point in time. Does it need to be closed for 5 months? I mean, I applaud the outcome of this, the clip-on cycleway and walkway. The outcome of that will be fantastic. It'll be so cool for the region. But the consequences at the moment with that road being closed is just catastrophic. I've been working on my shop this week and monitoring that traffic flow. It is zilch. Human nature, people like to do the norm. They like to drive over a bridge and go straight into town and do their business. If you're diverting them around up into Childers Road, around the roundabout to come back into town again, they're just not doing it. You know, I mean, it's just not happening. And it encourages people to go straight to the warehouse or to do their business elsewhere. I've been to every single shop in town, pretty much from the Peel Street end back, the southern end. I haven't done the other ones as yet, but I've had a lot of emails and phone calls from other shopkeepers in the other parts of town that have got majorly affected at the start of the week by this road closure. So I would like to have some answers to why it's been closed and the length of time that it may be closed, and if there is any other scenarios that could help. Because at the moment, if this keeps on going, we're going to see a lot of closed shops in our CBD. There's already quite a few that have closed down over winter. That southern, eastern end of town, I should say, has got a few more extra shops, particularly in the Low Street area. That seems to be getting quite more vibrant down there. But you know, every little thing that we can do to keep our CBD alive is a good thing for the region. And anything that we do detrimental to it is not.
Thank you. Councillor, care to respond?
Yes, to the committee, when there's two questions and the timing of it. When we first looked at the plans, the risk was to decongest both of those intersections for the work. And what we've done is I kind of call it the Wainui or Kaiti side, we've stopped right turns going into the bridge. So that's one way of it. The other one, which we've our contractor came back and we agreed with them, is they said they didn't want backing up onto that bridge when they start working. They're not, at the first 2 weeks, they're just doing enabling works. Once they get into that, you'll see potentially some of those roads they'll need to do stop and go to actually, they'll be close to one lane. And it was during some of those times, those concerns which we've got will be really highlighted. We are putting a camera up because then we were saying, look, we can really get some good information of when, can we actually look at changing that plan? So that's come back. But at this stage, we're still, I know, I'm not hiding behind health and safety. That was just one of the reasons. The reasons we wanted to decongest that intersection, but we'll have to talk with our contractors and see where the risk transfers if we decide to overrule that. They understand that too, because look, the contractors there are local people as well, which is they get it. But all we've asked was just, I don't know if there's probably another week and a half until we can get the cameras up, until we can, we're monitoring the site this week to find out what the impact, but it's really when we start the work, that's when we really want, then we can say with some confidence we can close or look at that intersection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support Councillor Foster on this. We're going into some of our quietest retail periods, like every year between August and September, right up now to probably the AMP show. And it is the entrance to the gateway to the city. And I just think when there's roadworks going on like this, if there's a will, there's a way. And motorists, whether they be the trucks or just ordinary cars, they just have to be more patient. I mean, that end of town, normally struggles because a lot of commercial stuff down there. And I think we need access in there as long, it shouldn't be out for 4 or 5 months. We really should work hard and monitor it and keep that flow going through there. Just have to be patient. Go to Auckland or any of those places, you wait half a day when there's road work. So I'd just say, if we can wait 3 or 4 minutes, so be it. But I support Councillor Foster on keeping it open.
I'd just like to raise the fact that this advertisement, which was in Gisborne's paper on Saturday, and it doesn't, the script doesn't seem to bear any relation to the map. And I'd just like to, and I didn't know Councillor Foster was going to raise it today, but it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to our public, and they're asking what really is going on. So if someone could pass that down to NZTA, because it's got their name on it, and Dave, if we could have a look at what it is that we're really telling our community, and to have hold-ups through to January 19 does seem to be a little unusual when December, January is really a busy time in this community. So if we can do things that might make it a little more efficient in the meantime, that would be great. Thank you.
No one else?
One other thing. Look, you're saying it might be a week and a half before you get the cameras up. Every single day that our retailers don't have the same client base as what they normally would is a really hard day for them. And to pick it up later on down the track is even harder. So, I'm just explaining that,
We can hear you anyway.
Yeah, I'm just explaining that every day is critical because there's people out there suffering big time, and this road closure is not helping.
So what would you like this committee, or more particularly Dave, to do? I think things is,
Look, I would like to look at alternatives. I mean, you've got traffic light, you've got a traffic light system, even having a person monitoring it. It's only when there's 5 cars banked up at that situation that it causes any grief. It doesn't normally happen in winter time. Over summer, when there's more traffic flow, it happens a lot more. But if there's a situation where there's 5 cars and they're starting to be banking up over the bridge, well then get someone to stop it for a split second or a few minutes to let the traffic flow through. That would appease the situation and make everyone happy. What we've got at the moment, we've got a situation where you're blocking it totally if something happens, and it's not happening. And if it does, well then address it at the time. I just can't see the reason why it is being blocked permanently for something that might happen. And it's not something that is common at this time of the year. Maybe at peak flows in the afternoon after work or before work. That would be the, you don't see it backed up that often this time of year.
Sorry, Chair, point of order. This is a public deputation.
Yep.
And staff are not permitted to answer questions from the floor. So I'm happy to pick this up again when we get to general business, but at this stage it's a deputation and I'm not prepared for the staff to go backwards and forwards with answering questions.
okay. Point taken. Thank you. We move to page 11. The agenda. You can talk to this, Dave.
So through the chair, the network operating framework is something that was just started, as you can see from the report, a while ago with Cardno, and must say that we appreciate the work that Simon Barnett from NZTA was involved in helping us with this. And it is how we have been progressing things, and GHL have left, but it is how we were looking in the background already at a type of heavy vehicle route for Tairāwhiti, and looking at where the priorities are going forward. As you can see from the process that we're setting out, we're looking at more than just heavy vehicles. We can't just do a heavy vehicle route in isolation. And some of the work that we did with Cardno was looking around how we move through our city, and not just with the heavy vehicles, noting that they are a very important component of keeping soft squishy things like me on my bike away from big heavy things like trucks. So it is an important part of what we're doing, and also looking at some of, well, not reinventing any of the wheel from our urban development strategy work that we did back in 2015-16 and the cycleways program that fell out of that. Not starting that work again, but building on it to have a look at see how we can move things efficiently around our district. The purpose of this report to the committee is to revisit and check to make sure that the strategic objectives that we've talked about with Cardno are still what the Regional Transport Committee would want going forward, so that we can start doing that work. And you can see in the Cardno report, there's a draft map from the thinking at the time, where we were starting to look at how we could move heavies through the city, but then looking at the different parts. So the next step would be to take those strategic objectives and then turn them into a plan, or a map, I suppose, of how we would move things around and bring that back to committee, and that would then flow into the plan. So I know I'm talking about a framework and a plan. So the framework talks about what it looks like. The plan is how you actually build it. So the plan's the bit that we fund and identifies the jobs that happen to actually make that framework actually happen. So thing is, one is the map, which is the framework. The next bit's the bit of actually prioritising and building it, which is what you do through the plan. And that's when we have to look at how we fund it and how those interventions work and things like that. So the only reason it's me talking is because this is back when I was doing, Cardno was one of the jobs that I was doing in my previous role. So Kater decided to throw the ball my way because that's something that's been there for a while, but Janet can answer any further detailed questions.
Those that bothered to read it, this is a very good report going forward. So Meredith. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly do agree, and thank you for all the work in respect to this, and it's not an easy space of the significant challenges for our region. In regard to the hierarchy, page 15, bullet point 28, it says it was agreed that the most sensitive routes, is that sensible or sensitive? It is sensitive, yeah. Some of the roads that have been noted, I'm just, concerned that those are roads where people have, there's been significant complaints or, concerns around the road use. And also, I'm just really aware, how are we, future-proofing this region, the bigger picture in regards to this hierarchy, based on our community's needs and, the future growth projection stuff, as well as tourism, and a whole bunch of, I guess, bigger picture and work moving forward, especially with the Provincial Growth Fund applications that are going through. So the hierarchy of roads, I'm mindful that we've just had a deputation from GHL to discuss, further road use and other roads options. Do we need to just keep talking in this space? Is there room to just keep having the dialogue rather than saying these are the roads? Because I'm just concerned that we're not looking at future-proofing the region well enough. And I know that's concerns from others. So with the hierarchy of roads, is there more dialogue that needs to occur? In my view, there does need to be, and certainly, taking into account some of the residents' concerns raised in council from time to time, and also, as I said, the bigger picture for our region. Where does tourism sit in this space, and other road users, produce, etc. So the hierarchy road space, I'm concerned about. Thoughts?
So through the chair, those roads that are identified there are roads where we currently have issues, either from a maintenance point of view or actually from a safety point of view, with the future projections of log trucks coming along them. So for example, the likes of Crawford Road, not very many heavy vehicles use that road currently. Part of that, however, is only because we have a kind of gentleman's agreement with the trucking companies in the local community not to use Crawford Road to keep off it. Given the space, the community and safety concerns for the drivers, they all would rather keep away from the kids as well. If we were looking to protect things going forward, same goes for Harper King Road, Ormond Road. We've got some investment decisions to make in those spaces going forward, and it's around, they were the ones that we were discussing at the time around, we have an issue with these roads now, the volumes are increasing. So all roads are part of this discussion, and it's absolutely something that we need to be having with our community around which roads will be prioritised and for what reason. And if a road is going to be part of a dedicated heavy vehicle route, if we go down that path, what mitigations would then be put in place for that, and how we would manage traffic flows, whether through surfaces or treatments to houses, those kind of things would all have to be part of the mix with that community to inform any decision for you and the council to be able to make around a recommendation for where things go. But yeah, everything's on the table at this stage, which is why we're bringing it back only as the strategic objectives. We don't have a hard, fast route that we're trying to put through. There's no decisions that have been made from staff around that.
Supplementary, Mr Chair, just also in the report, whilst I appreciate it's noted the concerns of Makodi School, I think we need to highlight the concerns of all schools in the region, because we know our region's planning, those large portions of our schools are on high-use roads. It's just how it is. So, and I know we've had lots of deputations from a number of schools, so, you know, noting all those concerns. The Provincial Growth Fund application GHL just raised, it has got Gisborne City Councils are supportive. So can is that able to be brought into this space as well, or is that a total separate proposal?
Through the chair, the GHL proposal that has been tabled today is new to us as staff. It'd be something that we will be having a conversation with GHL staff about later on today around anything going forward to the PGF. As a region, we have a process for how we prioritise our provincial growth funds, and that's something that the TEEP do for any project that we put forward for PGF as a region. And I know that this hasn't been through that process yet, so I'll be in touch with Tracy about how that fits into the planning that we have underway through this Cardno, and there are, you know, some great similarities between thinking, and we appreciate the time and effort GHL's put into it, but our staff advice would be that it would be a bit premature to apply for the PGF given the other things that we have underway at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Any further questions? If not, would someone move the recommendations, please? Thank you. Seconder, put that to the table. All those in favour, please say aye. The contrary, carried. I reiterate, this is a very good report. Page 48. Which David is this one? Harafti Rose. No? Emma. Emma.
Okay. Now, just before I get into the detail here, I'm just conscious that the National Land Transport Program will be publicly released tomorrow afternoon. Until that's released, I can't comment on anything that is in the National Land Transport Program or not in. So just appreciate that that's a timing challenge. However, I am going to be back in Gisborne next Friday. So if councillors or RTC members do want to have a briefing on what is in the Regional Land Transport Plan, I'm very happy to be available for a workshop on Friday afternoon to take you through that. We can arrange it to suit. Have to be probably after about 1:30. So very happy to organise that. So then you can save all your questions till then, and we can go through everything in infinite detail. So in the meantime, things that we can update you on. See what's on there. Okay, so one of the big new things that you'll see coming through with the National Land Transport Program is that the government has announced enhanced funding assistance rates. Now, one of the things that we identified when we worked with councils around the country this year was that it's very helpful to have specific programs of activities that are a priority and to focus effort and so on. So we've been working through having actual programs that run nationally where we can signal some of the priorities. And the other thing is that when there are important things that the government wants to achieve, sometimes it can be challenging for councils to move quickly in response to those. And this is where the enhanced FARs are intended to assist and support that. So these can be used for high or very high priority projects, and apply only to the 3-year period of the National Land Transport Program. They're set halfway between a council's normal FAR and 100% FAR, but they're capped at 90%. So it does provide that additional opportunity. There is a condition. The condition is that any funding that releases must be redirected to other transport projects in the region. So if you were to take advantage of this and then that money was to be taken out of the transport portfolio, you wouldn't be eligible. So that's the criteria. But it does mean that you're able to get more government funding for every dollar that you're putting in for those priority projects. What will happen over the next 2 weeks, so it takes us a little bit of time to work through all of this, is that our staff will go through and assess all eligible projects, and we will let you know which projects are eligible, how that assessment runs through, and what the impact would be. And then the council will have the opportunity to decide whether it wants to proceed with those enhanced FARs and redirect that funding elsewhere or do something else. So that's that one, which is new. Provincial Growth Fund, we'll have a bit of conversation about that. So just the key things to be aware of here is, and we've already discussed this at this RTC meeting previously, is that any transport related project must already be in the Regional Land Transport Program to be considered for PGF funding, because that is the way that the region prioritises its transport investment. And then all applications for PGF funding will get assessed by us, the Transport Agency, and determine whether or not they're eligible for National Land Transport funding. And then if they don't receive National Land Transport funding, then they're considered for PGF. That doesn't take terribly long to do all of that, but that's what Cabinet has agreed is the process for how we do that. Then MB, the Provincial Development Unit, assesses the contribution to economic, social and other outcomes that are the criteria for the fund. So there's been quite a bit of activity around the country. A large number of proposals have come through from regions all around the country, primarily the surge regions, which are Northland, Gisborne, Wanganui, Manawatu, the West Coast, and one other, which is not in my region, so I've forgotten it. But there's a lot of work going on in that space, and we'll continue to see that happening. But the main thing for this committee is that if it's not in our Regional Land Transport Plan, it's not eligible. So if there is something you think is a priority, you would have to go through the process to amend the Regional Land Transport Plan. Rail Safety Week, not really an issue in this region, but if you're travelling outside the region, please be very careful. We've had a lot of accidents recently on the rail network with both pedestrians and cars, and we're just really trying to encourage people whenever they're out and about in regions where there is a rail service to be very careful. And if you're into the technical details of traffic systems side of the picture, we're currently consulting on traffic control devices for general use, which is part 5 of the traffic control devices manual, which is about things like traffic lights, pedestrian, controlled pedestrian crossings, and so on. And if you have a particular interest in how those traffic control devices are used, do go online, have a look, and make your thoughts known to us. I have learned a lot about traffic control devices in the last year, and the fact that the only things you can paint on the road are traffic control devices. And it is not legal to paint anything else on the road unless it's a traffic control device. So it's something that we manage quite carefully, because anything else can be very confusing to both motorists and pedestrians. So that's underway for anyone who is passionate about traffic control devices. Now, Dave is passionate about the roads in this region, and he's going to take you through an update on the activity that's been going on in the region. And from my perspective, I'd just like to say that the team, including the Gisborne District Council, Tairāwhiti Roads, has worked incredibly hard. And I mean, I've seen a huge amount of work in relation to the Queen's Birthday events and the activity and the way all of the construction companies, they've pulled all their resources off other projects and put them to work. Police helped us, and we had some challenging situations out there when roads were closed. And it was a huge amount of work that's been done recently, and I'd really just like to acknowledge that the local team here and also local community has done a huge amount. And every time we get that good feedback going back to the team, it's just so important to them. This is a challenging environment. We often have difficulties with the roads and things that people aren't happy about, but I know there's been quite a lot of really positive feedback, and it means a huge amount to the team. So thank you to those of you who have provided that feedback. And obviously, if things aren't right, you can keep telling them, but when they get it right, please let them know as well, because it's fantastic. Dave, over to you.
Over the next 6 months, one of the biggest challenges is actually just the business as usual, and what our team have started doing, and we're going to map it, and the plan is that we can put it onto the website so people can have interaction. It's just the amount of work that's needed to complete what we call the chip seal and the road repairs and in the road reconstruction program. And our contractor said they had to take, this is just 11 pallets of soil samples to get them tested. And so when the soil lab said, "Where's this? What regions are these from?" I said, "It's from one." And they just got a shock of the amount of work that needs to be done. So Downer, we're in terms of resourcing, are actually going to have to bring some of the other crews from around the country just to do what we call the pothole repairs on the local roads and on the council this year. So once we've mapped them out, I mean, that's just, we've got it over the whole district. That's just it. But we've noticed there's certainly from places like Taupiri-Parae into the port, well, there's going to be some delays there. So we've got to start some of those consultations with certainly the Eastern Wood Council as a start, because it depends on the alignment that instead of having 3 truckloads per day, they may only be having 2, because there's so many roadworks that are going to be on that highway. So that's some of the details we're working through. So that's going to be a 6-month program. So that'll be the discussion, and not to just go back to Gladstone, and also what's happening with the utilities contracts, is there's a lot of work happening from other utilities as well. You'll see on Ormond Road, the network are doing undergrounding. So there's going to be a lot of roadworks, just not from roading, just not from the utilities, but that's gas and power. That's all trying to get their work done before the Taha celebrations. So everyone's rushing to that time zone. So we're going to have to start selling the story of how there is going to be a lot more traffic cones around the place. There's going to be a lot more traffic stop and go measures around the district while we repair and do the work on the network. And that's just the business as usual. It's just the stuff that has to be done.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if this is going to be put up on the website, well, we can probably work this out for ourselves, but would be helpful to the public if it's got a code. I mean, I presume blue is chip seal, but if you look at the page, it doesn't tell you what blue is and what's red.
Yes,
So
we've got, it's interactive. What happened, of course, when we first gave it to our team, they put, it had 2 coat sealed and all that. Well, we didn't need that information. You can see the legend on there.
We understand it, but the public it won't be clear to the public unless you give it a code, please.
No, you won't see it to that. It'll be about, we just wanted to make sure it's simple, but we also want to have timelines where we're talking about how often can this get updated, because you don't want it just for a month. So we're working on that, so we can give it to our stakeholders and also to customer services as well. The team have been able to put our applications through, so we're just waiting for the final announcements. But yeah, look, in principle, like I said, we've got extremely good financial assistance rates to do the work, which is, once again, just acknowledge certainly the Sarah Grant and Darren Cox, the network managers, putting those applications. It's a lot of hard work, and so I just want to acknowledge them. But that's a very good financial assistance rate to do the repairs. So thank you, our investment funders for that one. Okay, and there's and there'll be a full report because at the moment the so-called emergency event has stopped and we're into the recovery phase, which means actions that we could be done, like getting our diggers need to do reports now. We need to just get now resource consents to do that component. So we're just working through with the regional arm, and then we can start packaging the works out to the construction industry. There is a lot of work that's still out there at the moment, and even on Tauwhiri Paira, we're still bridge works getting completed. So it's just not all, as I say, it's just not in the city, but in the rural areas as well. And that's all. Will be one more report going to the committee just in regards to the school program. Okay, and we're just doing a little bit more work on that. Everyone's seen the action that's actually happening at yeah. So that's, and like I said, local firms helping with that, and you're doing a very good job. In fact, we've had a few people come in and just handwritten letters to say they acknowledge the work the teams have been doing there, and so we've said thank you, and we'll put that onto their when they complete the contracts. Just that little bit extra, will go into their reports. Sorry. Yep.
Just going back to that picture, within regards to the concrete that is there, what is in the dirt space? Is that going to have plants, or is that just going to be?
At the stage, it's just going to have grass.
It is going to be grass.
Motu Bridge, everyone, yeah, that's, even though it's operation, there's still a few things to complete on that, and once it's completed, then there'll be the official opening for it.
Just on that, then, I know that the business plan for that there was some talk of economic value, to the region having the 2-lane. Is that a report that will come as to how the impact of that bridge has had on us economically? I mean, because obviously I wasn't so keen on the amount of money spent on a 2-lane bridge when the gorge is shut. But is that something that we will know, we'll get some information on?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could work on, because at the moment we're also working on the connection from Matawai to Motu with the cycling improvements, and there's also work that needs to be incorporating, can we call it a rest area, a visual site at the bridge that people can actually walk down to the river and have a look. So it's connecting to it's a network, we're connecting to the whole, so to make sure the cycling route from Portiki to town is connected as well. So it's part of the puzzle, isn't it? What else we got there? So, we did have, as you see on State Highway 35, there was the Panikau, the passing opportunity that was stopped last year because it was too wet for winter. So that'll be restarting. Okay, that very soon. Okay, and the rest areas are pretty close to complete. There's a small area there. There was a right-of-way with the neighbours that actually still has to be resolved, and so that job is probably close to 99% complete. Okay. If there's, I mean, there's still the business cases, which is just not only just part of our team, but it's the wider team, and that will come back to the committee in due case. Okay. So, that shouldn't have come up. And that's it.
Chair, thank you for that, Dave. I don't need to remind the committee, these two gentlemen sitting to my right, Emma's already given them a bit of kudos, and the CEO carried the flag for us during those storms. It was a critical time for council, and I believe that, you know, this committee needs to acknowledge they did a great job. Do you have anything further to add, Emma? This report? No? Okay. Your questions? Yes, certainly.
That's part of the long-term plan, but we're working with our regional arm because we're allowed certain, so when we had the event, part of what we did is we sat down with the regional arm of council and see, you know, what parts can we do. So they sat with us and coordinated, but usually after sometimes 12 weeks, 16 weeks, it's not really, the emergency provisions kind of stop because you're now into what we call that recovery phase, and that's what we're working with. There were things like they allowed us for stockpile waste, food material, and so now we're going back and respecting those consents. So that's what we're working with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to raise a couple of issues which I have flagged in general business, but they do fit within the context of this report. And I just want to observe that that's Parneka Hill Quarry route, which is a piece of road that I travel often. I mean, a huge amount of work was done on that, and it just seems amazing that it had to take so long, and it's now been abandoned. So we don't even have a passing lane where we sort of had a passing lane before, simply to wait till next summer. And so then there'll be quite a substantial amount of work needing to be done to the foundation of the extra pieces on the side of the highway before they get sealed again. So it just makes you wonder why things have to take so long, which comes back to the point in this paper that the Gladstone Road Bridge will be potentially closed till January 19. You know, why can't we focus the work so it becomes done in a more confined time frame? I mean, some organisations do work into the evening on a piece of critical highway. And one might think, bearing in mind what Councillor Foster said already, that the Gladstone Road Bridge is a piece of critical highway. Don't expect an answer now, but I just like that thought about. And then I want to bring up the issue of a further road fatality on that piece of road around the Rotatahi Swamp yesterday. And I note in here that it says that safety barrier work has been completed, but maybe it's going to, the page is not numbered, under active projects on improving safety. Last year, a huge amount of work was done on cutting back the trees and scrub and rubbish and things that grew, but we had one car in there 3 or 4 months ago, and unfortunately, a most unfortunate incident yesterday. And I just want to draw to NZTA's attention while they're here that we've had 2 fatalities on State Highway 35 between Okatū and Tolaga Bay in 3 months, and it's not a good track record for our district. And anything that can be done to make our roads safer, and particularly that rather unforgiving piece of road around the Rotatahi Swamp, I urge NZTA to look closely at it and see what resources can be put in there, please.
Thank you. No further questions? Someone move the recommendation noting the report. Thank you. Seconder, put that at the table. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary carried. Page 49. Delivery framework.
So through you, Chair, the purpose of this paper is to just inform the committee that we had put this paper through our council, and it's around investigating a potential model for delivery of capital works program. Council has approved us investigating the model, investigating the applicability of the Northland roading model here within region. So it's just an FYI for the committee, just knowing that a number of the committee members are not on council, sorry. So just to let you know, we are looking at how we're going to deliver the amount of work that we have in front of us. It's substantial with the work that we have from the Tolaga Bay floods, and we already had capital works program that we were behind on. So the purpose of the Alliance is to look to see how we can deliver what we have in front of us. With what's fit for region, as Dave alluded to, some of the contractors are already starting to feel the pressure with the amount of work we have on with our increased long-term plan budgets. So this is around how we deliver our capital works program more than anything.
Yep, seconder. Thank you. Put that to the table. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary carried. Over the page to 50. Here we are. Sorry about that. Going to sleep. What about this Northern one? Okay. Sorry about that. So that's us. You had a couple of questions, Pat, or have you?
No, well, there was a need, it fitted into that last regional report, thank you.
What about this offer of Emma's to deliver to us next Friday? How many are interested?
I think, can I just ask, as the meeting's closed,